How many hours a day do you practice for an event? That is very dependent on how much time I have. Some events it's more, some events is less. I will say, like for YCS Bologna, it was not as much. Like I spent a decent amount of time during the last week, but beforehand, it was just one of the combination was just, I wasn't super motivated for Bologna because like there was just so many options and it felt overwhelming to me. And I was like, I looked at all the decks and I was like, this deck is cool, but it has some weaknesses. This deck is cool, but it has weaknesses. This deck is cool, but it has weaknesses. And it didn't feel super motivating to me. And it was just like a matter of, I don't know, I haven't done that much testing for YCS Bologna overall, which makes it even more like, you know, incredible that it worked out the way it did. But I will say one big deal for me is that the fact that I do stream these days, simply it helps so much. Even though I obviously like I don't show you my exact deck list on stream because that'd be like I would put myself at too much of a disadvantage. And that's why I don't test my exact list or build my exact list on stream. Still, the amount of time I spent with the game, just in contact with the game, is honestly one of the best preparations you can have, right? I feel like since I'm streaming, I'm so much more like up to date on what's happening, what kind of new decks are around, what kind of techs people are playing, what the trend in the meta is, you know, all that kind of stuff. And it's also just practice. It's practice. Even if I play Master Duel, which is a different game than the TCG in like some ways, it's practice. It's just practice. And it's the most important thing, even after having played this game for how long has it been now? 20 years? It's probably 20 years since I've started playing this game. Practice is always the most important thing. And experience also. You just need to freaking accumulate more and more and more experience. And honestly, there's a lot of things. There are certain skills that are like they carry over from format to format. But there are also a lot of skills that you have to reset every time when there's a new deck in the format. When the format changes, it resets. You need to learn the new decks. It doesn't matter that you can be the best player during tier 11 format. If you don't learn the new decks, you're not going to be good in the next format, right? And so it's like, you need to work on both of these. Like, there's a set of skills that are just like, overall, you know, the way you think, the way you approach the game. That is something you can, like, train over the course of years. And then there's a lot of work you have to put up every single format, over and over and over and over again. Like that, it resets. New ban list, new set, reset. Start from zero, right? Some people are gonna be faster at it than others. You know, like I think I personally are someone who at this point in time I learn relatively fast when it comes to Yu-Gi-Oh. You know, like because of 20 years of experience. But still, I still have to go back every single format. I have to learn the new decks. I have to practice the new decks and so on and so forth. So it's hard to answer like what exactly you do. Just it's just like mostly a thing that you work on for like years and years, and you have to start over every format. Can you live only with your streaming income, or do you need another job in the Yu-Gi-Oh community to make a living? I can live off of it right now, and I'm very thankful for that. I think it is part of the reason why the last 1.5 years have been probably my most successful in the game ever, right? Like I've always been a successful player since like, I don't know, 2012 or something like that, but it's never been as good as the last 1.5 years. And I think the fact that I get to basically commit to this thing full time is a huge reason for that. That is a huge part of the amount of success I've had in the last couple like years. I think it's because they invented Runics. I mean, maybe. It is also, I will say, it is true that Runics are a deck that I think they favor me as a player a lot. I think I'm probably exceptionally good at playing with Runic decks because they just have a lot of player agency. And it's funny because I have 5 wins now if you include the Master Duel World Championship, and 3 out of those 5 wins have been done with Runic decks. Well, at Worlds it was only half of my lineup. It was only 1 Runic deck, but like it's freaking 3 out of 5 are with Runic decks, which is kind of crazy. Don't say Bedge! Runics are based, man. You think Master Duel changes your perspective for you? How do you improve in the TCG? I mean, it's just more practice, I think. Like, that's what I mean. Like, Master Duel is a different format. Master Duel is basically a different format, but it's the same game, pretty much. So, you cannot learn the format-specific things in Master Duel, right? Like a specific matchup, you cannot learn that in Master Duel for the TCG because it's going to be different. But what you can learn is the way how you think in a turn of Yu-Gi-Oh! Like, because like the information you get, how you work with that information, the reads you make, how you play your cards, all that kind of stuff. It requires a certain logic, like it's just game knowledge and how to work with the cards you have and all that. That is something that always works the same way, pretty much, right? So like whether you play Master Duel, whether you play current TCG, whether you play a Time Wizard format, it's always like, you know, learning how to make the best decision possible with the information that you have, with the cards that you have, all that kind of stuff, right? Like that is something you can practice in Master Duel as well, and it carries over for the TCG. You can even play other card games, right? You can I've played other card games in the past, and it freaking like it carries over. Like I've had during COVID, I had a really good year in Legends of Runeterra. And I felt like I was at a huge advantage because I carried over like over 15 years of Yu-Gi-Oh knowledge into a different card game, and it was like freaking it felt very natural to me, right? And that was really cool as well. Yeah, so I think it's just people tie, when they try to learn Yu-Gi-Oh or anything, when they try to get better at Yu-Gi-Oh, I feel like they focus way too much on just like learning one specific format, or maybe even learning one specific deck, or maybe even just making like a freaking spreadsheet for their deck and doing all the freaking what's it called, all the lines for one specific deck and like thinking that makes them better at the game, when in reality that's not really that much what it's about, right? It's not that much about learning all the possible lines for your deck. It's more like about just viewing it in a different way and learning how to use the cards you draw in your hand, and especially because a spreadsheet is like a very one-dimensional thing where your opponent is pretty much not included in the equation. You know, way more often than not, you go first, and your opponent hand traps you, or you go second and you have to play through your opponent's interactions and so on and so forth. And then a whole other dimension that isn't included in something like spreadsheets is predicting how your opponent is going to interact with you, right? Because if you see your opponent's Baron, you don't necessarily know where they're going to use it. So like playing your cards in an order that encourages your opponent to use the Baron on the wrong card and so on and so forth is also really important, right? So those are a lot of nuances that you learn just by playing the game, and being also I think very cautious is important. Like you have to like constantly reevaluate and look back at why what you did worked or didn't work, right? And I think that's the hardest part. I think people just play and they don't evaluate that much, right? They don't look back and they're like, okay, this was a mistake because whatever. Like they only see like you know, my opponent top decked this and then they won, or you know, my opponent had the hand trap and then I lost, or anything like that, which is always like, sometimes it's true, you know, sometimes it's true that you couldn't do anything, right? But more often than not, it's not true. And it's very hard to distinguish between the two, you know, because if there's a loss that you couldn't do anything about, then you shouldn't beat yourself up about it. But if there's a loss where you could have done something, you need to spot that. And but you don't want to be like but basically if you are wrong about your assessment, then you're either beating yourself up about something that you couldn't change anyways, or you're the other way is also annoying, when you think you haven't done anything wrong when in reality you could have learned from that game, you know? That sort of thing, I think you would think it takes a lot of time, but then in reality there's also a lot of people that have done this incredibly well without like spending 10 years to do it or whatever. There's just some people that are very naturally gifted at it. Like the one that comes to mind that people always mention is like Pac, who's been like playing the game for what, like 3 years now, not even, and has already won 2 YCSs and is one of the people that grind the most, I think, and play the most and simply get rewarded for it, because I think he's learned he's learned, instead of learning one specific deck, he's learned how to basically evaluate the game as a whole very well, I think. So that's impressive, I think. Money helps though. I don't think money is a big factor in who's doing well in the game. I mean, of course the cards are expensive, but most people have like, they either have the cards or they borrow the cards. If you're like, if people are very like active in the community, they will also have the opportunity to borrow the cards. Like before I was a freaking adult and had a job and the money to get the cards, which I thankfully do now, I used to always borrow my cards back in the day, right? And that was never a big factor for me. I think it's mostly, I think one very big resource that is probably the most relevant to being good at Yu-Gi-Oh is time. Time is a huge resource. Like if I was working a regular, I don't know, 9-to-5 job that didn't have anything to do with Yu-Gi-Oh, and I had to manage like keeping up with the game and my like personal relationships, you know, fiance, family, friends, if I had to do all that next to like 9-to-5 job, it'd be so much harder. It'd be so much harder. Like time is a very probably the most valuable thing when it comes to being good at this game or staying good at this game, right? Because it's not something like you can learn how to play Yu-Gi-Oh once and be good at it and have a good game sense, but you still have to like reevaluate every format and learn new things, right? Pack does that. I mean, yeah, Pack works full time and stays up to date with the game, but like the thing is, I think Pack just spends a lot of his free time with it, which is something that some people can do and some people can't. It's not even like a negative or a positive, you know. It's not a front or anything, but like in my current situation, I wouldn't be able to spend my entire free time on the game simply because there's other things that I value a lot in life, you know, my family, my fiance, my friends. So like I'm not spending many nights like testing and all that. I spend a lot of my time that I spent in contact with the game is like during stream. That's a large portion of it. It's not 100%, but like it's a large portion. Thankfully, your job is your hobby. I am very thankful for that. Like unironically, it is one of the best things that happened to me. The day that I started streaming when Master Duel released, I still view that as one of the best things to ever happen to me personally. Any advice to newer players? I'm trying to get as good as you. I would suggest to take it one step at a time. Maybe that shouldn't be your first goal. I'm not saying you can't. No, you maybe you could, but like I don't think that's the that's not. I don't think that's the freaking. I don't think that's the right. What's the word? I don't know. The right goal to begin with, because that's probably going to be frustrating in the beginning. Like, I think you should approach it one step at a time, and it's not like start playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Step 2, be as good as I am. Even I still take tournaments step by step, right? Even like if I go to a tournament, it's like step 1, make day 2, step 2, get through day 2, step 3, and then like every single match in the top cut is another step. Step 1, buy 3 Fire King structures. Step 2, win World Championship. Yeah. I just have a great time playing Yu-Gi-Oh! And have fun with my friends and my local community. That seems like a much better way to start, yeah. That seems like a much better approach. Because that's, honestly, the reality of things is that's how I started as well, right? I never started this game with the intention to even play competitively, with the intention to win a big tournament or anything like that. Because when I started playing this game, we didn't even have that. We didn't have big tournaments. Like, I started this game freaking when, like, Playground, and then I went to locals for the first time with, like, at the age of 10 or anything like that. And from that point on, I always only played the game because I liked it. It was never like, oh, I'm gonna win a YCS because I want to do that. I've been playing the game, and so I just my natural progression. Just eventually, you know, it brought me from Playground to locals, and then I was having fun at locals. I made friends at locals, and then eventually I started winning locals, and then we went to like bigger tournaments like regionals or console tournaments, and I started doing well at those. And then eventually I was like, okay, I was old enough to go to like nationals and so on and so forth, and then the first YCS happened in Europe, and so on and so forth. So even that was like a step-by-step development where I never started playing this game with the goal of playing competitively, with the goal of winning a YCS or with the goal of being the best or anything like that. It's just always been, I just like this game. I've loved this game in 2003 and I still love it to this day, and I think that's where it comes from, because the rest is natural. The rest is a natural development, right? Because I never feel like I'm forcing myself to play the game to get better at it. I play the game because I want to.